Hey, welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. This really is the place where we just meet, get together, start talking about our dreams. Let's just do it. Let's figure this out. What are we doing here? So, to start that conversation, we always ground ourselves in our greatness and really the greatness that we bring to the world every single day, just in our very existence. And if you're shaking your head by now, come on. We're there. We're there. We're existing in our greatness. It's a better world. It's a better life. It is what we deserve. It absolutely is. And so I want you to just stay centered on that fact. Just stay there. Stay here with me, with us as we venture down this path. Because really, this is where we're meant to go. This is what we're supposed to do, you know? Here we are. And I don't know. I just can't look at it any other way, right? We have to start to shift that belief that exists there with what's holding you back. And one of the best ways is just to start to believe in your own greatness, to shift out of the mindset that you aren't worthy, that you aren't amazing, that you aren't enough, because you are everything and more. No question. So, my great thing from yesterday, from the world, I guess, as it exists, is really just, continuing to listen, continuing to filter through these new filtered, I don't know. Have any of you seen the movie, what's it called? It's not Up, but it is like a one-letter word. Oh my gosh, I can't think of it. But basically, they have all these feelings, and then they're processing the feelings, and joy is the main feeling, but joy has to figure out how to exist with sadness. And then at the end of all of it, they decide and realize that both things are necessary. All of these emotions are good and needed. And then all of a sudden they get this upgrade. And that's almost what I feel like is happening. It seems like, I know, kind of a weird concept and construct, but bear with me, right? This new filter, this new upgrade really has allowed me to see things from a completely different perspective. And it's not a perfect practice. I've talked about that. It's not like you get it and then you're just like, oh, it's a whole new world, which it absolutely is a whole new world. But it's a continued practice of what it looks like to exist with this new filter, with this new way of looking. And so for me, it's just been sitting back and listening and giving myself enough time to fully examine my reaction, to fully examine this new filter and this new way of thinking. And that's my great thing. Just continuing to do that work, continuing to push myself to be bigger, better understanding, more loving, just continuing to do that work. So that's my great thing. Go ahead, take time, recognize yourself for your great thing, your own greatness, the beauty that is you. You can't get there without starting to look for it. Just this simple addition of this practice of calling greatness, whether you do it at the dinner table, whether you do it at the breakfast table, whether you do it by yourself, whether you do it in a whole group, just this very movement will shift you, right? Because you begin to look for it. Therefore, you start to set your vibration higher, period. Explanation point. Question mark, explanation point, period. start. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in today. I love to come home before and after my workday starts, because really my workday starts around 3 a.m. and then I prep and start getting ready for the show, do some yoga, do reading, start to collect my thoughts for what we're going to do. So I would say my workday starts around 3 a.m. And then I work until about 7:30 a.m. Then get people ready and off to school and all the places that they're going to go, and then come back for like a little bit of silence until meetings start, and then a 9-hour work day, another. And so it really is just working in shifts. And then I usually do classes at night, and hopefully, if I've done my work day right, more reading. And when I get my downtime, I love to catch up, but usually I only catch up with the Today Show in the morning. I don't know why. I think it's because I love Hoda. I don't know what it is exactly, but I love it. Anyways, so I was watching the Today Show the other morning, and they had this guest on, and his name was Thad, and I can't remember his last name, but I bet I could look it up in a second. And anyways, so they bring him on and they talk about how he had this big break, right? And like he had finally made it to the main stage. He was on the Tonight Show. Yes, with Jimmy Fallon. Yes, it's the Tonight Show. And so they bring him on and he starts talking about that experience. And cool, you made it, awesome. And I'm listening to the story, and pieces of me are just like, gosh, like everything in life really is up to chance. Hannah, you need to listen to this story. This is just so true, and it's so transcendent, and it's so important, right? And so as I'm listening to this story, they're asking him questions about, what you would ask. Oh my gosh, you had been working so hard as an artist, because he was an artist for his whole adult life. And he had been working so hard, and then it just all happened by chance one day. And so he's talking about how he had written a note to himself at the beginning of January. And so I think it was January 14th, he had written down that he was going to find a new career. Because if music was supposed to happen for him, it would have happened by now. And so he writes himself that note, that kind of manifesto, and the next day, an agent called and was like, Jimmy Fallon wants you on The Tonight Show. Right? He wants to talk to you about your song, about this song. And what I found interesting was the reason that Jimmy Fallon loved this song was because it was all about like coming up and never stopping, and like finding your way there, even though it's going to be hard, and even though you may just fail and never end up getting there, like you are going to push, and you are going to find it, and you are going to do it. And I think for that, for the universe to align on that song, and to align with someone who was about to throw in the towel, like that just completely blew my mind. And then the story continues. And what I love most about stories is how people connect their own dots in their own story, right? Like nobody else could put all those pieces together. That's what's so divine and beautiful about you. That's what's so important about you piecing it together, about you finding a reason and a way to matter. Like everyone's journey is so unique and so beautiful. And I think this story was just such an amazing testament to that. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today. And this story actually was brought to me, I think last week, but then I had more conversations about it with different friends. And, sometimes it doesn't always play out to me in real time. And it doesn't always make sense to bring to this show until I've had a chance to fully process it, to fully bring it all together, and to fully like sit down and make sense of how this makes sense and why that was brought to me. And so now I'm bringing it here. And what struck me was, yes, this song is all about coming up. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging. And that hit Jimmy Fallon because of just the place where America is, right? You know, all this turmoil, all this change, all this craziness. And it spoke to Jimmy in that moment because he's like, I think that's just where we all are. Like, we're gonna fight for what we believe is right, and we're gonna go and we're going to get there. Like, we are not going to stop, right? Moving forward, moving as a country, moving as a people, moving as a person. And then this happened. Then Thad starts to talk about why. Like, why he thinks it all played out the way that it did. And this is where I was just like, what? Holy crap. Right? And so one of the anchors asks, like, how did you not stop? All those years, all those albums, all those things, right? Of just playing to empty shows, of just putting out albums that barely sell. Like, how did you not stop? And he's like, well, first off, I almost did, right? Important to note that. But here's what. When I was little, and he starts telling this story. When I was little, I had 2 brothers and me. And my mom had made this like entryway where we were supposed to hang up our coats. And so she got nameplates from the store that had our name and then the definition of our name. And my name, his name, she couldn't find. And so she picked the nameplate that she felt like represented who I was. And the nameplate was Aaron, but this is what the name meant, and this is what she believed I was here for. And so she had said the definition was, you are a light. And he's like, I don't know why. Why, out of all the memories that I have of my childhood, why that moment? Why that understanding of what my mom knew to be true to me? Why that stuck out? And he's like, but after this experience, I finally get it, right? Like, he finally pieced that puzzle piece in there. And he said, and furthermore, this is what amazes me more. Jimmy Fallon heard my song in a hardware store looking for a light switch. Right? And he's like, I think I have always known that I was meant to be a light, and I didn't know when that was going to happen. Right? And if you think about it, like, he had to be saved by a light, right? But he also was a light. And now his music, even though he never knew, right, when it was going to be necessary, when it was going to come in and save people and be a light for someone else, even though he never knew. And there was never a guarantee that that would ever happen, right? He still had to make it. He still had to be a light. And now, you know, the fact that he was in this moment of despair almost just shows how much more important it is for you to bring your work to life, whatever that is. Like, do it, and do it without guarantee. Do it with knowing that You are meant for whatever that divine purpose is. And I think so many times we get distracted because we believe that the only reason to create is if it's accepted. And no, the reason to create is the call to create, not the call for acceptance, not even the call for someone asking you to do it necessarily, right? You know what speaks to you. And for him, he's making music that people haven't needed in the past, right? And he's making that before there's even a call because he knew that he was called. And just when he was about to shut the door, the universe was like, no, no, no. This is exactly what I had planned for you. Let's open that back up. Right? And now I think his songs are, top of iTunes. I'm sure that you could go there right now. I think the single is Spinning, but it is by Thad. And there's a bigger story to it, and you can look that up on the Today Show. And hopefully I got most of the account right, but I think this is really what's important here. You have so many clues. And if you really break down and think about the things that you remember from your childhood, and yes, I know some of them are very traumatic, and maybe those aren't clues, or maybe they are, right? And how all of those things sort of come to fulfillment and alignment later on, right? Like you don't know. He didn't know at that point why the nameplate was so important, why his mom had picked that definition for his name because she couldn't find one. Like, you don't know, but you will eventually be able to put that together. And if you start looking for it even sooner, right? If you start to pay attention, start to call those things out, start to play out that story. And I know that this has been true to me, is like, what are the moments that I remember? And one of those moments, right, was the death of my dream, essentially, when I was 7, right? Like that moment stuck out to me. And yes, it was sad, and yes, it hurt, but I don't remember it hurting then, right? It's just a memory. It's just something that happened. And it now informs all of this work that I'm doing now, all of these thoughts that I'm having now, all of these realities and truths that are me. And so this is the second time now that the meaning of a name has been brought up to me. And and I talked about it yesterday, The Love You Give, the dad talks about how important the names were that he gave his children, and how that was what they were supposed to play out. The meaning of their name is who they were meant to be in this world, is the work that they were meant to do in this world. And he knew that when they were born, and so he gave those names accordingly. And right, like how powerful. And you think about your own name and how you were named, and whether that was like a specific beautiful thing, your name still has a meaning. All names have a meaning, right? If yours doesn't, I swear they have to have a meaning. And I'm not saying that your parents didn't totally just steal a name off of a magazine cover, because that's totally possible, but your name has a meaning regardless of, how your parents came upon that name. And I'll tell the story of my name because it is kind of interesting. So I'm the third child. I have 2 older sisters. Their names are Hillary and Heather, right? And they're like yin and yang. They grew up, they were the girls, and I was just silly Hannah. And when my parents were coming up with my name, I was the third and final child. I was going to be the period to what their life story would be. And so my dad, I think, had always wanted to name one of his children after his best friend, Mikey. And since I was going to be a girl, they had decided that I would be named Mikey or Mickey, right? If I was a girl, I would be Mickey. And I think that was totally decided. That was totally going to happen. And then my mom starts to have this like fear of like, oh no, she's not going to feel like she fits in if she doesn't have an H name. Hillary and Heather and Mickey. What? That won't work. That's not fair. And so I imagine my parents debating, fighting back and forth in like the delivery room, essentially, of like, no, it's supposed to be Mickey. No, it really has to be a H name. She's going to feel left out if she doesn't have an H name. And so my mom is divinely given this name, Hanna. And she takes the name Hanna to my dad. And she's like, it's Hanna. It's supposed to be Hanna. And my dad goes, fine. But I am not having her spell her name frontwards and backwards. That's ridiculous. Of all the things to be ridiculous. I won't stand for it. It can be Hanna, but there will not be an H on the end. No, absolutely not. And so the H was stricken from the end of my name, and it was Hanna. And so as a result of having the meaning of names start to play up, I've never looked up the meaning of my name, which is surprising because I'm kind of weird like that. And so since this had played out and been in front of me and brought to me 2 times, I decided that I would look up the meaning of my own name. And the meaning of my name is 2 words: grace and favor. And so then I start to think about how have grace and favor really played out in my life, right? And I think it's like this, right? And I don't know. Okay. And I'm bringing this to you live. I haven't really thought about this, so I'm going to think about it live right here. The grace part, I think, really is in me having to grant myself enough grace to love and value my own story. And as I continue to do work, right, maybe that's the purpose of everything that I build from here, is like to help people give themselves their own grace, right? That was such an important piece of my own story, was like, you are just who you are, right? And there are so many stories that we tell ourselves. And if we can't find it in ourselves to forgive our own stories, right? To find grace in our own upbringing, to find grace in our own stories, then how are we expected to do anything from there? And the next part is favor. And I think favor is what I'm currently in a season of navigating, right? Like understanding and accepting favor. And the other night I was laying in bed and all of a sudden something just comes crashing downstairs. And I'm like, well, that's a little crazy. And I go downstairs and it's this sign. And this was 2 weeks ago when I was sort of meditating on the fact that, like, everything is in alignment. Right? Greatness is a guarantee. It is aligned. The world is abundant. The world is abundantly aligned with who I am, and I'm meditating on that idea and really thinking through. And I go downstairs when I wake up and I find this sign. And on top of the sign, it says family. And the quote under it is a psalm, I think. But basically, it says, like, God has shown your family favor. Right? And now, saying that out loud, sheesh Louise, right? Sheesh Louise, yeah. What? And I think it's just acceptance that I've always had favor. Like, even through all of the medical things, like, there are reasons that you're still here. There is something for you to still do, or you wouldn't continue to wake up. You wouldn't continue to breathe and have a purpose and to walk on this planet. And so for me, now knowing that grace and favor are part of my being and my intrinsical meaning to how I'm supposed to walk on this earth, what a powerful thing, right? And no matter where that name came from, no matter if it was a like last minute fight in a hospital bed like mine, or right, or it was just something kind of slapped on you because they couldn't come up with anything better, whatever that was. Or you're like my second daughter, who we just literally were looking at a football schedule and we're like, Baylor, yeah, I like that. I don't like it with a Y. Let's put an E. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Let's put an E. Bay, that could be the shortened version. And I love a nickname to baby, trust. Like M and Bay. So here for it. Anyways, I think no matter where it comes from, we all have something that speaks to us. Something that is a true north for us. And so even if you can't find that meaning and that understanding with your name, like I've been kind of piecing together over the last couple of weeks, right? There's something. There are clues. Even start to track back. Gosh, as I was talking to my friend last weekend, they were talking about how they had held on to this memory of like playing with cardboard when they were little, and they had no idea, right? Like, that's a throwaway memory. Why is that even a big deal? And then all of a sudden they have this like light bulb moment of this music video later in life, and it stemmed from the holding of that memory. And then they bring together the most epic cardboard reenactment of a music video that I've ever seen. I can't even. And right, like, there are these little clues for the things that we're meant to do here on this earth. Whether that comes from the meaning of your name, whether that comes from holding on to some memory that you can't quite place, but it's always been there. The clues are everywhere. They really are. And you can start looking back and start paying attention to what you held on to and what are the consistencies. And maybe you don't ever put all those pieces together, but maybe they can start to light the path or start to help you get a better understanding of what it is you're supposed to do here. Are you a light? Are you grace? Are you finding your way back to favor? Your way to accepting favor? Are you granting grace? Right? And all these clues put together can start to piece you back to where you're supposed to be. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.